What if the West balance didn't shift with a blockbuster press conference, but with a single read receipt between two all-timers, one text that, if answered, would redraw every scouting report from Sacramento to San Antonio? I'm not saying it happened. I'm saying tonight we're going to walk right up to the edge of that possibility, feel why it makes basketball sense, why it collides with the new CBA, and what it would look like with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, and the ball in Stephen Curry's hands. Before we even whisper the name you're waiting to hear, here's the roadmap. We're going to talk about fit first, how the geometry of Steve Kerr's offense bends when you add a downhill freight train with Hall of Fame vision. Then we'll hit the money, what the second apron actually does to dream trades, what salaries would have to cross, and why just make it happen isn't a plan. We'll revisit the timeline when the phones rang, who answered, and how unusual that was. Finally, we'll separate league buzz from club-confirmed reality. Stay with me. The reveal comes later. Let's start on the court, because that's where this fantasy either holds water or leaks. The Warriors' offense is a language. Split cuts, ghost screens, 45 cuts, short roll reads. Curry is its grammar movement that sets meaning. Add a certain 6 and 9, point forward mind into that. Language and simple actions become unsolvable. Picture this. Empty corner. Draymond screening for Steph above the break. And the new guy, yeah, you know who, running an inverted pick and roll with Steph as the screener. Switch it and you've just asked the guard to put a body on the most powerful driver of the last 20 years. Don't switch it and Steph pops to a clean 3. That's the nightmare. Defensively, it's less about highlight blocks and more about possession integrity. The Dubs are at their best when Draymond quarterbacks the shell. Wings top lock shooters, and the rim is protected by timing and tags rather than a single skyscraper. Insert a hyper-literate defender who has seen every coverage wrinkle since. The Bush administration, and the talking gets louder and cleaner. The real gain isn't a chase down. It's one fewer rotation mistake per quarter, which is 5 to 7 points per game against elite teams. Now the uncomfortable part, age and minutes. This pairing would live in the margins between maintenance days and back-to-backs, between save your legs and go win the game. One reason the fantasy endures is that both stars are low ego when it comes to sharing offense. Steph will flow into off-ball gravity without complaint. The other guy has long loved being a trolley problem for defenses. Cut off one track. He takes the other. But to make that sing at 37 and 40, you need pristine spacing and roll clarity for the rest of the rotation. That means shooters who don't think, bigs who screen like they mean it, and a bench that keeps pace without hemorrhaging points. Let's slide into the cap table for a second, no jargon, just straight talk. The second apron is not a slap-on. The wrist, it's a straitjacket. Teams above it lose tools. Sign and trade, off the table. Aggregating salaries, restricted. Adding B-out guys, limited. If you're trying to mash a max number into a roster that already pays 2 or 3, heavy deals, you're choosing pain somewhere else. Youth pipeline, depth, or future picks. So if you ever saw the two megastars together, it would have to pass through the eye of a needle. Matching money going out, picks for persuasion, and a third team to spread the math without tripping hard cap landmines. Why does the idea refuse to die? Because basketball people can't resist symmetry. The best shooter ever standing shoulder to shoulder with the greatest paint bender of the modern era is a perfect coil idea. Pressure at the arc, pressure at the rim, and passing that punishes any attempt to cover both. Also because timing whispers. One legend is still an MVP-level engine. The other is defying the actuarial tables and playing chess at a speed most guys never reach. If you're going to try something outrageous, you try it before the hourglass runs out. There's also the culture angle. The Warriors under Kerr and Curry evolved from joy machine to rock tumbler. Polish the edges, remove the frictions, trust the reads. The other star's culture has always been about burden sharing. He carries the heaviest bag, and he expects veterans who won't drop theirs when it's time to fly across the country in February. Oddly, those cultures rhyme more than people think. Both insist on IQ. Both obsess over spacing. Both punish laziness. The overlap is why the pairing looks less like a tabloid fling and more like a chess experiment. Zoom out and remember the history. We've lived LeBron versus Steph for a decade finals again, and then that 2022 reminder that the Warriors' read and react system still drives grown men crazy. We've seen handshakes after buzzer beaters and Instagram love between. Peers who understand the difference between rivalry and resentment. None of that makes a deal easier, but it does make the imagination more vivid. We believe what we've already seen strains of: respect, shared language, mutual terror for defenses. OK-timeline. There was a moment when phones rang in strange directions. The kind of owner-to-owner back channel that tells you a front office is testing the universe rather than the market. The window was narrow, the message was ambitious, and the answer, at least then, was no. That wasn't rumor-mongering. That was reported and dissected. It didn't create a bidding war. It created a file folder label if he ever asks. Now fast forward to this summer. The star in purple and gold faced a fork in the road: opt out and invite suitors to heat up cap sheets, or opt in and keep agency over the next 12 months without tearing up roots. He chose to exercise his option for 2025 to 26, guaranteeing 2 things. He'd set another longevity record, and any dream of him moving would have to be trade, not free agency. Around the same time, fresh reporting said the Warriors had not let the question die. They'd called multiple times across 18 months, checking temperature, not pounding the table. Buzz, not brass bands. All right, here's the reveal, clean and responsible. What we can confirm today is this: the Warriors did make a serious run at the trade deadline back in February 2024. The Lakers declined. In the last year and a half, multiple reputable outlets have reported that Golden State has checked in more than once about the possibility, but there is no team announcement, no league filing, no completed transaction that puts LeBron James in a Warriors jersey. He exercised his $52.6 million option to remain with the Lakers for 2025 to 26, and any Curry-LeBron pairing right now lives in the realm of interest and inquiry, not ink. That's the truth of the moment. So why does even that level of interest matter to us in the Bay? Because intentions shape options. If the Warriors are prepared to explore the boldest possible version of the Curry window, then every smaller decision extensions, pick usage, the price you're willing to pay to keep or move a young piece gets framed by the question: would this still make sense if we ever had a shot at the big swing? That doesn't mean waiting on a miracle. It means not painting yourself into a corner where the answer can't even be maybe. Let's game out the only realistic path that could ever drag fantasy toward reality. Scenario A: the Lakers crater, the standings look ugly in January, and the player quietly signals he'd accept a move. That still requires cooperation from ownership and a package so respectful it honors a statue before it's built. Scenario B: the Lakers are fine, but the star decides legacy means one last dance with a rival-turned-partner. That's even harder. You're asking a franchise to voluntarily shrink its universe. In either scenario, Golden State needs draft picks with teeth, a blue-chip young player, and matching money that doesn't leave its own roster too thin to matter. Speaking of costs, let's be adults about names, even if we don't trade machine this to death. Any call would begin with, "Are you including your blue-chip wing?" And, "Are you sending multiple firsts?" The next layer is salary. A veteran starter's number almost certainly has to move, not because anyone wants to, but because math is a tyrant. You probably involve a third team to turn good player the Lakers don't need into useful piece they do. Every inch of that road is uphill, and the second apron throws marbles under your feet the entire way. On the floor, though, my goodness. Picture a late clock stack action. Curry comes off a Draymond handoff, pitches back, and the other legend becomes the downhill screener. Help comes from the strong corner. It's a skip to a 40% shooter. Help stays home. That's a right shoulder freight train at the dotted line. Want to switch? Okay, enjoy a spread floor with the best shooter alive size in the center, while the strongest driver alive hunts your smallest guard. Kerr's 0.5 rule make a decision in half a second becomes a religion, because both stars read the second defender like a children's book. Defensively, you actually simplify. You don't need your new forward to chase point guards. You need him to be the second brain in the shell. Switch the front, peel switch the middle, and live with contested twos instead of rhythm threes. He's not the guy who blitzes every pick and roll. Anymore, he's the guy who tells the blitzer where to funnel. If you've watched Draymond jab a finger like a traffic cop, imagine someone else jabbing too, and the 5 chess pieces sliding together instead of one piece, sprinting to save a mistake. The hidden tax in any mega move is minutes and touches. For the kids, the Warriors' youth movement athletic wing upside, a connector guard who rebounds like a forward, a spacer with a quick trigger would have to learn how to be great in 18 to 24 minute windows instead of 30. That's a skill. Some players blossom in that pressure. Others need a rebuilding team's patience. The front office's calculus is cold but necessary. If the window is still held open by number 30's gravity, you bias toward those who can help in May, not maybe. In 22-8.now, why would the Lakers ever entertain any of this? They probably wouldn't full stop. The brand calculus alone is enormous. You don't send the face of a generation to a conference, rival unless the return builds the next decade. And the player asks for the door. Even then, ownership might prefer an Eastern landing to avoid seeing a ghost twice a month. A move like this will require the rarest alignment, competitive logic, emotional consent, and financial arithmetic all pointing in the same direction. That's why interest is not imminent. One more reality check from the media side. Every few weeks a new voice weighs in. Some endorse the fantasy. Some tell us to stop trying to make fetch happen. The point isn't who wins the debate. It's that credible reporters have consistently said the Warriors checked in, and an equally credible chorus has said, don't hold your breath. That duality is the whole story. The door is not welded shut. It's just very heavy and guarded. By circumstances. Let's talk legacy, because that's the ghost in the room. For Steph, sharing the floor with the one man who has split the sport's greatest. Conversation right down the middle would be the most audacious act of confidence. I'll share the stage because winning is the only argument I care about. For Lebron, playing inside the Warriors' read and react symphony will be a final thesis on adaptability. He bent Miami to him, Cleveland around him, Los Angeles through him. Could he melt into a system that predates him and still own the biggest moments? Rings aren't math problems, but narratives cling to them like ivy. What about style? Kerr's offense demands you cut on time, pass the space, and trust the next man. The other star always prefers shooters who respect spacing and bigs who set. Mean screens. The overlap is why the mind wanders. Imagine Horn's twist with Curry and the new forward as the two up top. Draymond fake screening into a short roll and 2 corners occupied by 40%ers. Defenses can pick their poison. They can't decline to dot opponents with counter by shrinking the floor, top lock Steph to force back cuts, then pre-rotate a weak side big to put 2 bodies at the rim. Switch everything and dare the aging legs to beat them one-on-one for 20 possessions. Junk it up with zone-to-man looks to steal the rhythm. It would work for stretches. But the math of a Curry-Lebron pick and roll, surrounded by competent shooting, leans your way over 7 games because it manufactures high-value shots without needing hero ball. There's also the calendar. Every season starts with the same. We've got time. Then ankles turn, hamstrings tug, and suddenly next month is the All-Star break. Any team with title dreams has to decide by February if it's sharpening the blade or remolding the hilt. Kicking tires on a dream doesn't mean you're reckless. It means you're doing diligence. The Warriors have signaled they're not asleep at the switch. That alone should comfort a fan base that's seen both parade routes and first round exits. If it never happens, and odds say it won't, this exploration still has value. It clarifies how the front office views the window. It tells the young guys exactly how high the internal bar is. It reminds the rest of the league that the Bay is still where imagination meets accountability. And it gives the room a North Star. For role players, shoot when open, cut when watched, screen like it's personal, and defend like 5 voices speaking one sentence. Let's not ignore the human component. Joining forces after a decade of collisions isn't like switching to AU teams. It's fan bases swallowing pride, teammates resetting egos, coaches splicing playbooks. It will require one superstar to shrink shot volume without shrinking presence. The other to run more actions on ball without killing the off-ball motion that terrifies defenses. It's possible because both have done it before in doses. It's hard because doing it together would be something the league has literally never seen at this age, and because someone will ask, no, this is not a blueprint for a Super Team U. Can't sustain for 5 seasons. It would be a comet-blazing, short, unforgettable. You make that bet only if you believe one more June is worth all the draft capital and developmental oxygen you'll never get back. Dynasties end twice, once on the court, once on the cap sheet. If you can buy one last curtain call with the 2 greatest basketball process of their generation, some G-Miz would sign on the dotted line. Others would say, we'll keep our powder. Reasonable people can disagree. Meanwhile, the Warriors still have to win Tuesdays in February. That means maximizing Steph's window with or without fairy tales. Another plus wing who can shoot and survive switches. A backup big who screens like a lamppost, and role players who erase mistakes instead of requiring schemes to hide them. The rumor mill can hum. The practices still decide the season. If a second act ever materializes, we'll know because the signals will change. Not whispers about exploratory calls, but agents tightening lips, rotations that look suspiciously like pre-deadline dress rehearsals, and reporting that moves from interest to frameworks. Until then, we enjoy the thought experiment and keep the analysis honest, no jerseys Photoshop on the bodies that haven't chosen them. One last picture before we close. Chase Center, Game 5, tie game, 36 seconds left. Curry calls for a flat screen. The forward sets it, slips, catches at the nail. 2 defenders step. Steph backpedals to the moon. The pass doesn't even look real time. It looks rewound. Net. The building levitates. It feels inevitable because it weaponizes 2 kinds of gravity at once. That's the dream in a single possession. My opinion? I'd love the basketball. I doubt the mechanics. And I'm at peace with both truths if it ever happens. It's a comet worth chasing. If it doesn't, there are still banners out there for a locked-in, well-built Warriors team to go take.